In this video, I'm going to solve this problem once and for all. We're going to pose the question, is J.K. Rowling transphobic? So I'm going to go through an article, a Wikipedia article, that outlines the accusations, the examples where it's been deemed where J.K. Rowling is transphobic. I'm going to comment at the end whether I believe she is. And really, it's up to you, the audience, to decide, because a lot of people have said to me, J.K. Rowling has said nothing transphobic. So I think it's important to go through the examples and give my opinion and make your own opinion. Is the following transphobic or not? So, Rowling's responses to proposed changes to Scottish gender recognition laws comes up, and her views on sex and gender have provoked controversy. Her statements have divided feminists, fueled debates on freedom of speech, academic freedom and cancel culture, and prompted support for transgender people from the arts sector. Her statements are deemed transphobic by critics, and she has been referred to as a TERF, a trans exclusionary radical feminist, in response to the comments she made on Twitter. She rejects these characterizations. As her view on the legal status of transgender people came under scrutiny, she received insults and death threats, and discussion moved beyond Twitter. Some performers and feminists have supported J.K. Rowling and condemned comments against her. So that's a brief summary. So let's go into the 12 or so examples of J.K. Rowling's views on transgender people. So it starts in 2018. So Rowling's views on trans individuals were first noted in 2018 when she liked a tweet that described trans women as men in dresses. So it starts here. So is that transphobic? We'll move on. This garnered criticism from her fans, who accused her of being transphobic. Her spokesperson told Pink News that Rowling had favorited the tweet by mistake. Do we believe that? We'll move on and see if her views reinforce this notion. In December 2019, Rowling tweeted support for Maya Forstater, who lost her job with the Centre for Global Development due to gender-critical views, and this subject of Forstater versus Centre for Global Development Europe. In 2020, Rowling spoke out against a DevX article for using the phrase "people who menstruate instead of women." She stated that denying the reality of biological sex erases the experience of women worldwide and eliminates the possibility of same-sex attraction. So that will come up again, the notion that trans people are denying biological sex and the reality of biological sex, which just simply isn't true. This is a dog whistle. It's a manipulation of the trans notion that people who are transgender view themselves as that gender, whereas the notion is gender. They're not necessarily claiming to be transsexual. So we move on to June 2020. Rowling responded to criticism that stating sex is real and has lived consequences, while additionally writing, "I respect every trans person's right to live any way that feels authentic and comfortable to them." Which, again, is that a contradiction to say that sex is real and implying this dog whistle and then saying they respect? Again, I'll leave that for you to decide. Later that month, she addressed criticism, posting an essay on her site, which I think now is deleted. I could be wrong on that, but maybe that's a future video. She wrote that many women consider terms like people who menstruate to be demeaning. She said she was concerned that girls were transitioning in order to escape sexism and said trans activism was seeking to erode women as a political and biological class. That seems absurd to me, but I mean, I have not seen. I would like to see the evidence of that. I think that's quite a bold claim. That really, I'd like to see the evidence for that. She said she was a survivor of domestic abuse and sexual assault, and stated that when you throw open the doors of bathrooms and changing rooms to any man who believes or feels he's a woman, then you open the door to any and all men who wish to come inside. She also stated in her essay, I believe the majority of trans-identified people not only pose zero threat to others, but are vulnerable. Trans people need and deserve protection. I feel nothing but empathy and solidarity with trans women who have been abused by men. Okay, so she's saying that trans women are a threat to women, and then she kind of backtracks and says she feels empathy. And this is a classic move of someone who's got these kind of, it's like a racist says, I'm not racist, but. And again, the classic dog whistle, the classic misconception, classic myth that trans individuals are going into toilets. Like, if a man wants to go into a toilet and rape someone, they just will do it. And now also that is illegal. The fact that this new phenomena, again, which has no evidence, this does not happen in reality. So it's an emotional response. Already we're only a couple in, and saying trans men are women in dresses, it's not going too well so far, let's just say. But we'll continue. In September 2020, Rowling promoted an online store selling transphobic merchandise on Twitter. Along with a photo of herself wearing a t-shirt bought from the store, Rowling shared a link towards its website where other listed products showcased phrases such as trans women are men, woman is not a costume, and transition equals conversion therapy. So, is that transphobic? It's hard to say that's not transphobic. I think that seems like pretty clear cut. So tell me in the comments below, is that transphobic, and why that isn't transphobic? I would kind of love to hear the argument why women is not a costume and trans women are men is not transphobic. In March 2022, Rowling criticised Labour Party leader Keir Starmer, who said, trans women are women, in his personal opinion and according to British law. She accused him of misrepresenting the law and said the Labour Party can no longer be counted on to defend women's rights. Obviously, since then, Keir Starmer has kind of changed his opinion on that and kind of been, let's just say, groomed by the right to kind of favour this notion that trans women aren't women, and again, a problematic view in my opinion. During Lesbian Visibility Week in April 2022, Rowling tweeted a picture of Alison Bailey, captioned, Alison Bailey marches for LGBT rights. Linda Riley, who started the new Lesbian Visibility Week in the UK, distanced herself from Rowling's views on trans people and accused Rowling of using Lesbian Visibility Week to stir up hate in our community. Rowling responded to a tweet publicly sharing the picture of a trans woman and commenting on her appearance. Again, a classic way to demean and undermine trans people is on their appearance and how their ability to pass or not. So, again, is that transphobic? You tell me. In May 2022, Rowling called the treatment of a schoolgirl who left her school after raising questions on sex to a speaker on transphobia utterly shameful. In October 2022, Rowling voiced opposition to Scottish gender recognition reform bill aimed at expanding the rights of trans people, calling Nicola Sturgeon a destroyer of women's rights. Again, I would say that seems transphobic if you're not seeing trans women as women and questioning the notion that trans women deserve rights. That seems quite dehumanising. So I would argue that, it's not going so well so far. I think at this point, I would say she seems in the camp. Seems like she is a TERF. But comment below, how is this not transphobic? In December 2022, Rowling announced she was opening a sexual assault crisis centre, Beera's Place, exclusively for cisgender female victims of sexual violence. The Guardian quoted rape crisis specialists as saying it would provide much needed extra provision because existing services were being overwhelmed by new cases, and noted that under the Equality Act, services that exclude trans women are lawful if they are proportionate and legitimate. In response to a fan praising the decision, Rowling tweeted, "Merry Turfmas." So the idea that she's consciously made the decision to exclude trans women, again, it may be somewhat lawful if it's proportionate. I would argue that's pretty transphobic. It's exclusionary. It's seeing and suggesting that trans women do not deserve help if they are being abused, and it's saying that these trans women are not women. That seems pretty unequivocal in my eyes, but we'll move on. Rowling commented in 2023 podcast that she never set out to upset anyone, but was uncomfortable with getting off my pedestal. Rowling has stated she is not concerned about how her opposition to trans rights will affect her legacy. So, seems here she has made it explicit that she has an opposition to trans rights. So, the fact that she's denied being a TERF and okay. In June 2023, Rowling called the term cisgender ideological language signifying belief in the unfalsifiable concept of gender identity. And I think she's nearly kind of got something there. The fact that gender is a construct and it's a performative social construct. And cisgender is that, and so is transgender. So why can't you accept the fact that gender is an ideology and how people perform their gender is kind of none of your business as long as they're not harming you? Why are you so invested in this? Because that's the essential question we need to ask when people are obsessed with a minority. And J.K. Rowling is obsessed with trans people. Where is it coming from? What's the psychological dynamic here? Why the hatred? Why the dehumanization? That's the most important question I want you to take away from this video. Why is she so obsessed with trans people? It's kind of weird. In February 2024, Rowling donated $70,000 to a crowdfunding appeal by For Women in Scotland in support of their legal case challenging the definition of woman. The appeal was started after the UK Supreme Court decided to grant the case a judicial review. The case is one of many through which Women for Scotland are seeking to overturn the inclusion of trans women with gender recognition certificates in the legal definition of woman in some lawsuits in Scotland. So the idea that you can't even question the notion of woman seems strange to me. It's a social construct, it's a word, a signifier that we've determined what it signifies. The fact that we can't develop that and include trans women is in itself transphobic. On March the 4th, 2024, Rowling deliberately misgendered broadcaster India Willoughby, a transgender woman, several times on Twitter. Rowling called Willoughby a man revelling in his misogynistic performance of what he thinks woman means, narcissistic, shallow, and exhibitionist, and said she was cosplaying a misogynistic male fantasy of what a woman is. Willoughby posted, "The one good thing is she and her followers can never again deny her transphobia," and that she had reported Rowling to Northumbria police for alleged hate crime. That seems pretty clear cut to me. I mean, how is that not transphobic? On March the 6th, 2024, after Willoughby was interviewed by Byline TV about Rowling's prior comments, Rowling said that, "In my view, India is a classic example of male narcissist who lives in a state of perpetual rage that he can't compel women to take him at his own valuation," and said that she received legal advice that, "I have clearly winnable case against India Willoughby for defamation," and that India's obsessive targeting of me over the past few years may meet the legal threshold for harassment. The police later stated that Rowling's comments did not meet the criminal threshold and that they would not be investigating them further. On March the 13th, 2024, Rowling dismissed the fact that Nazis burned books on early transgender healthcare during their raids on the Institute for Sexual Wissenschaft as a fever dream on Twitter. This seems one of the worst ones. How is this not transphobic? I would love to hear from people who defend her. Rowling went on to tweet another user's tweet falsely claimed that trans people weren't targeted by the Nazis during the Holocaust. We have evidence of this, and the fact she's denying the fact that trans people were murdered in the Holocaust is transphobic. Because if you said that about the other people that were killed, that would also be racist. It would also be homophobic. It would be xenophobic. The fact that, it's unequivocal. Tell me how that isn't transphobic. Again, how is that not transphobic? I don't know how that is not transphobic. The fact that people are defending this woman after that is kind of astonishing to me. You've got to do some pretty crazy things in your mind to say that this woman is not transphobic. Her comments received widespread criticism, including from Alejandra Carabello. Some, such as the Jewish newspaper The Forward, accused Rowling of Holocaust denial. Rowling threatened journalist Rikav Brown on Navarro Media with legal action after Brown said Rowling was now a Holocaust denier. Because of this legal threat, Brown posted a tweet retracting and apologising for her prior statement. This caused J.K. Rowling as a Holocaust denier to trend on Twitter. I have no comment on that. I know this woman is quite litigious, so I won't go there. On April the 1st, 2024, in response to the Hate Crime and Public Order Scotland Act 2021 going into effect, Rowling posted a Twitter thread in which she listed several transgender women. The women included several public figures as well as convicted sexual offenders. Clarissa Jan Lim said Rowling grouping them together was an apparent attempt to draw a connection between trans people and sexual perversion. Again, and a classic dog whistle, a classic move from a transphobic person. Throughout the thread, Rowling sarcastically referred to them, all the people, as female, but at the end clarified, quote, "Obviously, the people mentioned in the above tweets aren't women at all, but men, everyone. Every last one of them." Rowling said that if her comments were legal under the new law, she looked forward to being arrested. Later, a spokesperson for Scotland Police said that Rowling's statements were not assessed to be criminal and no further action will be taken. An editorial expressing the view on the Times of London spoke favourably of Rowling's stance on the law, which they called one of the most confused, ill-drafted and unnecessary pieces of legislation enacted by the Scottish National Party government. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak defended Rowling, saying that people should not be criminalised for stating simple facts of biology. So that's not everything she said. There's other tidbits associated with her views, who she connects with, the kind of people she hangs around with on Twitter and the meetups she has. You've got to ask the question of some of the views that she's posed about trans people. If you were to kind of articulate some of the views about black people or Jewish people or gay people, I think it's, if you're not blinkered by the fact that you're transphobic yourself and your bar for transphobia is so high that it's kind of absurd. Often racists will claim they're not racist. Nigel Farage, people who voted Brexit, will claim they're not racist. But the bar they set for racism is so high, it has to be so kind of exaggerated and so absurd that it's kind of, they kind of want to make it seem that they're not. So again, it leaves us in a position where, okay, so what does it mean to be transphobic? If you're dehumanising them, if you're saying that trans women aren't women, if you're saying that what happened in the Holocaust to trans people didn't happen, what then becomes transphobic? Because I think pretty much most of what she said that has been deemed controversial is transphobic. It's dehumanising. It's kind of saying that trans women aren't women. And I think it's pretty unequivocal, the examples given there. So I bring the question to you, viewer. How is J.K. Rowling not transphobic? Because this woman has a lot of power. She has a lot of political power. She has a lot of influence to determine trans policy, and she has. So, comment below. What are your thoughts on J.K. Rowling? How is she not transphobic? And I'll see you next time.